China seeks to calm tensions with America over trade and currency issues. Zhong Shan, a vice minister for trade, is flying to Washington next week with the instruction to ease the friction.
The Chinese are under a lot of stress economically, politically, socially, and they feel that the U.S. is working to re-strangle them in East Asia, even militarily.
Colin Chapman welcoming you to Agenda with Rodger Baker. There have been less than friendly exchanges between Washington and Beijing this week. US senators accused China of deliberately inflating the yuan.
I believe the Chinese don't believe in free trade. I believe they're mercantilist, that they simply want to increase their economic power and will do whatever it takes to do that.
The Chinese leadership was less than impressed with accusations of currency manipulation and came out with a terse riposte. But there has been a chorus of economists well beyond the US calling for revaluation. The chorus grew louder as the World Bank lifted its growth forecast for this year to 9.5%.
I think we do see very strong growth by the Chinese, and there's been a fairly steady stream of assessments that they're going to continue to grow at a very high pace. But there is also a very high level of risk in that growth. The growth is fueled very heavily by government-mandated loans. It's fueled by local government consumption or local government borrowing, and often not very well planned borrowing. And there are lots of bubbles rising up, particularly the real estate bubble in China.
The World Bank says China must stick to its target of limiting new bank loans to $1.1 trillion this year. Do you think there's any chance of them achieving that?
Well, the thing we've seen is that the central bank looks like new loans may once again exceed the target. Already in just January and February, we've hit 28% of the planned lending for the year. March is going to be the really big test month to see how well the government has been able to pull back on some of the lending. But overall, because exports aren't picking up at the rate that they wish they would, because the global economy remains weak, the Chinese economy is going to be run on lending, at least for the next year.
The Chinese leadership is under huge pressure from most of the rest of the world to increase the value of their currency, but they don't like being told what to do by the American leadership, even though actually that would be a good way of cutting inflation.
The Chinese have lots of reasons on their own to adjust their currency, to increase domestic consumption, to deal with inflationary and deflationary pressures. Right now, though, the Chinese are under a lot of stress economically, politically, socially, and they feel that the U.S. is working to re-strangle them in East Asia, even militarily.
The president of Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai, is off to Beijing next week. What will the Chinese leadership be talking to him about?
The Chinese are concerned about the spread of terrorism and terrorist training camps that run all the way through from Pakistan through Afghanistan, through Central Asia, and even into Western China. And that's a big concern right now. But China has also been looking at Afghanistan as a place in the future to potentially exploit resources, as a potential place, a transshipment route for energy coming from the Middle East and South Asia up into China. These are long-term plans. And so the Chinese intend to increase their activity in Afghanistan, but primarily in reconstruction and in aid rather than in military elements. Now a quick look at what else is on the agenda next week. This weekend, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu flies to Washington for difficult talks with the US administration. He's taking with him Defense Minister Ehud Barak. They won't be flying British Airways just as well because its cabin crew are going on strike. Monday sees the runoff of French regional elections. So far, the socialists have the edge. On Tuesday, Hillary Clinton and Robert Gates lead a delegation of intelligence and military officials to Mexico. And on Wednesday, the world's financial community will watch the British budget, presented just weeks before a tight election contest. On Thursday, EU leaders meet in Brussels. The ongoing and unresolved Greek situation will top their agenda. A summit of a different kind will be that of East African leaders in Tanzania. A smattering of global business chiefs will join EU leaders on Friday for the annual US-Europe Forum. That's our agenda for the week. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.